The requests are granted. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3, 2013, the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Ms. Fox, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the subject of my special order.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're here tonight to pay tribute to the Dean of the North Carolina Delegation and our beloved colleague of many years, Howard Coble. Howard Coble has been a dedicated public servant to the people of North Carolina and a champion for honest, effective government. For 3 decades, he has taken great care to represent the values and concerns of 6th District residents. It is a profound honor to call Howard a dear friend, and it saddens me to think about coming here in the next Congress without his wisdom or signature wit. Wearing his trademark plaid jackets, Howard has been a champion for his constituents, whether in Washington or back in North Carolina. He never backed down from a challenge to do what was right for North Carolina and always pushed Washington to work better for those he represented. Always ready with a cheerful greeting and a welcoming smile for whoever crossed his path. It's clear Howard cares about the little details that mean so much to average North Carolinians. Those who met him know of his characteristic penchant for inquiring about their alma mater and then rattling off the corresponding mascot. Perhaps the most fitting summary of Howard's personality is that he is the essence of what it means to be a Southern gentleman, someone who simply exudes kindness, charm, and compassion. And let's not forget that he was named the sexiest bachelor in Congress by BuzzFeed earlier this year. Howard is also known for his deadpan humor and loves a good joke, even if it's at his own expense. However, that wit can sometimes be a two-edged sword. In 2008, his sense of humor almost killed someone. At the North Carolina GOP convention, he cracked a joke to Robert Pittenger, who now represents North Carolina's 9th Congressional District. Robert nearly expired after choking on his meal in mid-chuckle. Reliable sources have hinted that the joke might have been a variation of Howard's feisty mountain woman one-liner that he routinely uses to describe me. Fortunately, former presidential candidate Governor Mike Huckabee was there to rescue Robert from Howard's humor with a well-placed Heimlich maneuver. All kidding aside, Howard is a man of integrity and principle, a representative who has stood for what is right and who has fought on behalf of what makes America a great nation. Today, I salute Howard Coble, my friend, for his many years of service. We will miss him greatly. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I now yield 3 minutes to our colleague, Mr. Price.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for yielding and for scheduling this special orders here on our first night back in town for the very important purpose of paying tribute to our dear friend and colleague, Howard Coble. I'm very happy to join in this, as many other colleagues will be tonight as well. I've served with Howard since I first arrived here in 1987. He had beaten me by 2 years, first elected in 1984 to represent North Carolina's 6th District. I think when you hear the tributes tonight from both sides of the aisle, you're going to quite accurately conclude that Howard Coble is one of the best-liked members of this body, and that affection extends across the entire political spectrum. Howard's always ready with a kind word for everyone, from fellow representatives to Capitol Police and constituents. It's difficult to walk anywhere with Howard in Washington, in D.C., or in North Carolina without being stopped several times because he has so many friends who just want to catch up with him. I've always especially enjoyed introducing my staff to Howard. His first question usually is, what high school did you go to? And then the second question is something like, what's it like working for this scallywag? We've sometimes disagreed, of course, on politics and policy, but we've had many, many occasions for fruitful collaboration, cooperation on issues important in North Carolina. We've worked for years, for example, on promoting textile research. And we've certainly worked on disaster relief after several major hurricanes. So over the years, I've come to appreciate Howard as a smart and able legislator. And more than that, I've come to value him as a person, to value his friendship. My staff would want me to add, my district staff would want me to add how much we all admire Howard's constituent service. When it comes to working with our constituents and dealing with federal agencies, party lines don't matter. Often the district lines are a little indistinct, and we have to figure out whose district someone is in or get a case referred back and forth. Howard's staff is invariably cooperative, competent. It's not an accident that he has a superb reputation in North Carolina for just the best constituent service around. Howard has been a dedicated member in this body in Washington as well, an effective legislator, especially distinguishing himself in his leadership positions on the Judiciary Committee. And he's done all this with a certain grace and style. He reminds us of a time when our politics were less hard-edged. So as he retires at the close of the current Congress, we wish him all the best. He lives this body with immense affection and respect. Our state and the House of Representatives have greatly benefited from the service of Howard Coble. Godspeed, my friend.
Mr. Speaker, I now recognize our colleague, Mr. Jones, for 3 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized.
Speaker, thank you very much, and I thank Ms. Fox for putting this together. Tonight's a sad night, but a very special night. I think for those of us who've had the privilege to know Howard Coble as long as I have, go back to 1983 when I was a freshman Democrat in the North Carolina House of Representatives, and he was a member of the North Carolina House of Representatives as a Republican. Why we met, I don't know, but eventually we became pretty good friends at that point. Then he left the North Carolina House and came to Washington, D.C., and my father, Congressman Walter Jones Sr., was chairman of the Merchant Committee, and Mr. Coble came from North Carolina and was on that committee because he's a former member of the Coast Guard, and it was a natural because of the work they did on that committee. And my father became a friend of Howard Coble. Then I came to Washington, Mr. Speaker, as a Republican, and now we have been friends for many years. And this man to me is very special as a human being. And I nicknamed him, I heard Mr. Price say the dean, but I call him the leader. That's like L-E-A-D-A-H. And Mr. Coble likes to tell people that's because those of us from eastern North Carolina, we don't know how that the word leader has E-R instead of A-H. But I did that because at the time we became the majority in 1995, that was a change in the House for sure. And there had been a gentleman here, a Democrat, for a number of years, and Mr. Coble, being the kind of man he was, he said, no, I don't want to be called the dean. As long as he's here in Congress, I want him to remain the dean. And I think that says a heck of a lot about who this person is. So, Mr. Speaker, I decided that he should be known as the leader. And therefore, so many people in the House of Representatives on both parties, they call him the leader. Some with a northern accent, some with a West Coast accent, but it still sounds the same. So for me personally, this night is sad because I have spent many nights in the last few years, Mr. Coble and I having dinner together at the Capitol Hill Club, reminiscing about yesterday, but also thinking about today. And for me, this is a personal relationship that I have had like family, quite frankly. And for me to know that that I have been reelected for another term, and to know that Mr. Coble will go back home and enjoy the love and affection of the people of Greensboro, it still would be sad for me personally. And I do think that he has given so much, not only to the state of North Carolina, but to our nation. And he has been a very effective leader of the House. He's been a great legislator. He's been able to get things done in the Judiciary Committee and in other committees. And he will always be remembered in my heart, in my family, as a member of my family. And to you, Howard Coble, I love you as a brother in Christ. You're a special man who's given so much to not only North Carolina, but to America. And you will always remain a member of my family. God bless you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I now recognize our esteemed colleague from Eastern North Carolina, Mr. McIntyre, for 3 minutes.
Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Howard, for your spirit and service and standard of statesmanship. Howard and I have had a spirit of friendship that has been something we have always enjoyed together here on the floor, and often asking me about what the latest score was or when the next game is that our beloved Tar Heels were playing in any sport, not just the football and basketball, but the baseball and many other sports the team engages in. But our spirit has gone even beyond that great school spirit that we share and congressional spirit, in the spirit we've shared in our Lord and how God has touched our lives. Our fellowship together that we've had right across the hall in the Congressional Prayer Caucus, and even on the steps of the Capitol here one evening several years ago. I'm sure you remember that we shared together, Howard. And second, his service. In addition to his spirit of friendship and friendliness to so many people and the spirit that we have shared in our Lord, is his service, his longevity of service that he has given. But it hasn't just been mundane or in and out service, but it's been a service done with life and laughter and with latitude. He has life in what he does. He always shares a smile and makes you laugh and not take things so seriously that you can't enjoy what you're doing. We all should want to be able to enjoy this great opportunity of service. And he also takes the latitude to spend time with you and the latitude to literally work across the aisle, as symbolized by the comments you've already heard tonight and the friendships that he has across the aisle. And third, with that spirit and that service is also his standard of statesmanship. I think, Howard, about when we flew together with the Commandant of the Coast Guard and you being a Coastie yourself, and us often talking about the importance of the Coast Guard and how we know it serves us well in North Carolina and nationwide. But we flew down with the Commandant on his plane, and Howard came down to my district to honor Wilmington as the nation's first Coast Guard city on the East Coast. And we shared that time together. And he was that kind of person that would travel and spend time with you, and whether it was on the coast in Wilmington or whether it was on the pitching mound together, as he and I and Representative Fox and Price shared at our alma mater, UNC Chapel Hill, just this past spring, he knew always how to show that friendship and to show that standard of statesmanship in every situation. Thank you, Howard, for always bringing people together. With your disarming smile and your friendship, you've shown what exemplary statesmanship is all about. You've shown that spirit of fellowship and friendship. You've given that longevity of service. And most of all, you've shown that standard of statesmanship to which we all should subscribe. God bless you, my friend, my Christian brother, and my fellow Tar Heel. Thanks so much. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman yields back, Mr.
Mr. Speaker, I now yield 3 minutes to the Congresswoman from North Carolina, Congresswoman Elmers.
The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, and I am honored to stand before you to speak on behalf of my dear friend, the Dean of our delegation, Howard Coble. He has been a source of wisdom, an esteemed colleague, and a loyal friend to all since taking office in 1985. One of the fondest memories that I have of Howard was when I had the privilege of watching him accept the Bert Hoff Award. This prestigious honor was awarded to Howard for his unwavering support of the brave men and women serving in the United States Coast Guard. When I arrived at the ceremony, I wasn't surprised to find that the committee room packed from wall to wall. Seating was scarce, and there was hardly any standing room left for supporters. Everyone was there to show support and appreciation for our good friend Howard, just as he had been there to show support and appreciation over the years to all of us. While speaking at the ceremony, Admiral Papp shared some words of advice that Howard once gave him. Always take care of your shipmates. Howard, you have truly embodied this piece of advice through your service in Congress, especially when taking care of your constituents. You have always taken care of each of us, your shipmates, through both your dedicated service and loyal friendship. And on a personal note, I have had the incredible honor of following Howard in representing Moore and Randolph counties in District 2. And I must say, you are truly loved and respected. And I have very big shoes to continue to fill. Your retirement marks the end of an era here in Congress, but launched the beginning of another incredible journey for you. I wish you a long and relaxing retirement, and I will be forever grateful for your friendship and guidance through the years. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield 3 minutes to our colleague, Richard Hudson.
Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You may notice my sharp jacket tonight. It's a Madras jacket worn in honor of my dear friend and colleague, Howard Coble. Howard was not always known for just his colorful jackets. In fact, when he first came to town, Howard Coble was known for his many colorful suspenders. In fact, I don't know how many colors he had, but he was well known that he would always have those bright, colorful suspenders on. Next, he became known for wearing distinctive hats. In fact, in the 90s, Tim Russert used to refer to Howard Coble as the man with the hat. Then it was Tim Russert's son, Luke, who first noticed the Madras jackets a few years ago, and he actually put on his Twitter account, Mr. Speaker, that the jacket Howard Coble is wearing tonight looks like a, quote, exploding turtle, end quote. So the Russert family has long acknowledged Howard's unique sense of style, as have many of his constituents and his friends here in Congress. Howard Coble has been known for his sense of humor. He once remarked that if he put on a brand new suit, it would immediately look rumpled like an unmade bed. Howard has always had a self-deprecating humor and a personality that draws people to him. Everyone loves him, and I learned that as a candidate for Congress, Mr. Speaker, because I inherited 3 counties from Howard Coble's former district. And so when I would go ask people for votes, I had to immediately tell them I wasn't running against Howard Coble because otherwise they didn't want to talk to me. Howard Coble is legendary in his constituent service. He's always taking care of his constituents. They know they have a friend in their congressman, Howard Coble. He's set a standard, Mr. Speaker, to which we can all aspire to in terms of the integrity with which he's conducted himself, the love for people that everyone knows and can sense and is drawn to, and the constituent service. Mr. Speaker, it's been a privilege to get to know Howard Coble. It's been an honor to serve with him and call him friend. I will miss seeing him in Congress every day, but I know that he will not be a stranger. And I just say God bless you, Howard Coble, and Godspeed. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield 2 minutes to our distinguished colleague, Mr. Pittenger.
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, much has been said and written about the ratings of the United States Congress and the approval of what the American people think of us. And it's somewhere right around 10%. Let me tell you, those ratings don't take into consideration Howard Coble. My esteemed friend in this Congress is regarded by his own constituents as a family member. Howard Coble chose not to be married, But what became his family were his constituents. And what became his friends were his colleagues in Congress. Both sides of the aisle love Howard. And I'm one, Congressman Coble, who loved seeing you out there on that back row every time I walked in with a big smile and a good story. And everybody would come by and say hello to Howard during the course of the session just to see you because you're special to all of us. Yes, my good friend Congresswoman Fox did tell a story about how my life was spared as I was chewing some chicken, and I realized I couldn't chew and laugh at the same time. As I tried to swallow that chicken, and then here came Mr. Huckabee to give me the Heimlich and save my life. Well, you know, I was in a primary a year after that with 11 people in the primary, and the one good thing about it is I got a sympathy vote from Mike Huckabee, and he endorsed me. So that was a good thing. But Howard, thank you. Thank you for being committed in your job on Judiciary Committee, on Transportation Committee. You're faithful in every respect to do the right thing for North Carolina, for your district, and frankly for the American people. We are all in debt to you for your service to this great country. Our country is better off today because of the life of Howard Coble. Thank you, and God bless you.
Gentleman yields back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield 3 minutes to the distinguished chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Goodlatte of Virginia.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and it is just a real honor to be here tonight to tell my friend Howard Coble how much he means to me and how much I'm going to miss him here in the House of Representatives. He has not only been an outstanding leader on the House Judiciary Committee, and by the way, I hope the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Jones, will compile all those wonderful photographs and put them in some kind of a binder so that a book maybe even, so that all of us can see and enjoy all those historic caricatures that have been created in Howard's honor over these many years. But not only has he been a great member of the House Judiciary Committee, he has been a close personal friend of mine for more than 20 years. In addition to serving with him on the committee, he is somebody who is always turning to others, taking an interest in them. He has an uncanny ability to remember the mascots for virtually any high school or college that someone attended, and his ability to always ask others how they are feeling. With respect to this last point, he's diffused more than a few difficult conversations by asking people, "How's your back feeling?" Inevitably, especially if someone is older, they begin to talk about back problems and forget about what they were so exercised about. He is also a great tennis player. For nearly 20 years, I've had the honor of playing tennis with him very early on Wednesday mornings, and Howard isn't known for moving around the court really fast, but the thing about him is he always was there where you hit the ball, and he always put it back just exactly where he wanted it to go, and an amazing accomplishment. So, Howard, thank you very much for that. I want to tell one story in conjunction with a field hearing that took place in Nashville. Howard is a great fan of bluegrass music and country music in general. A field hearing that took place in Nashville when the FJS Fairness in Music Licensing Bill was under consideration in the late 1990s, a meeting was arranged with Garth Brooks. Howard, who was serving as the then subcommittee chairman, was a lifelong fan of bluegrass and traditional country music. He didn't really know who Brooks was and was far more interested in arranging a meeting with Grandpa Jones from the Grand Ole Opry. But he knows who he is now. In fact, Garth is making a comeback, and Howard, you will enjoy many, many more opportunities to enjoy the music that you love. He would always ask me how things were in the Star City, which is my hometown of Roanoke, Virginia, and took an interest in me and what I was doing. And on the committee as the chairman of the Courts, the Internet, and Intellectual Property Subcommittee, where he serves now and has served on a number of occasions in the past. He stood very strong for the rights of the private property rights of people who are creators of music and motion pictures and great products that they seek patents on and so on. And his work will serve for a long time in the future to protect that great American incentive to create jobs. His work has created many jobs for many Americans. He's a true son of the 6th District of North Carolina. I'm from the 6th District of Virginia. But in his case, he's a lifelong son of the 6th District, having been born in Greensboro, educated in the 6th District, and been a county attorney and an assistant U.S. attorney, and with the North Carolina, he's been a revenuer with the North Carolina Department of Revenue. But what I didn't know was that his first 6 years in his professional life, he was a claims adjuster for the State Farm Mutual Automobile Insurance Company. So here, in the closing days of his service, I'm still learning new things about my friend Howard Coble. So Howard, thank you very much for not only being my friend and a great colleague to all of us here in the House, but for being a great American. Thank you, and God bless you.
Jim Mills, by the gentleman from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield 4 minutes to the Chief Deputy Whip and our colleague from North Carolina, Patrick McHenry.
Well, I thank the Secretary of the Republican Conference, my colleague and classmate from North Carolina, Virginia Fox. But today, I stand in tribute with the fine threads of a man named Howard Coble, Congressman, State Representative, Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Revenue, Captain of the United States Coast Guard, school bus driver. That's where it all began in high school. That was his first public service. John Howard Coble has held a variety of titles during his time and during his years. But to me, he's always been known as the Dean of the North Carolina Delegation, which he has been for the last 15 years, the longest-serving Republican member of this body in the history of the state of North Carolina, and my friend. And I'm here to pay tribute and to thank him for his time in public service. He is what a member of Congress should be, and that is concern for his constituents and being their voice here in Washington and having an impact. And you certainly, my dean, have had a huge impact on my life, those that are paying tribute to say thank you tonight, but also your constituents and the American people, and we thank you. Now, there are a number of stories about the dean, a number of them I like to tell over the years, and most of them are in fact true. But this one story I want to tell tonight, actually two, if I may, it goes back to the first time Howard ran for Congress in 1984. The campaign committee for the Republicans brought up folks in tough, challenging races to have some video and film shot with President Ronald Reagan to help with his popularity, to help get some folks across the finish line in 1984. And Howard was so nervous that he forgot to shake the Gipper's hand. And so one of the campaign committee staff, they were coming to Coble's district, and Howard said, where were you? And he said, well, I was just in Alabama with President Reagan. Oh, really? He goes, yeah, I told him I was going to Greensboro. And President Reagan looked at me and said, well, tell that son of a gun that didn't shake my hand I said hello. And so Howard got a little flustered and was a little embarrassed and everything else until everybody started laughing. But Howard's had a great sense of humor, and that shows the real testament to Howard's integrity. But the other thing about Howard is fiscal conservatism, and it goes back to what he said his first campaign. He's going to bring a sharp pencil to the Washington budget, and he, in fact, has. It wasn't very well appreciated during his early service in Congress. There's a member of Congress who was furious, who said that sharp pencil might actually get your ticket written out of Congress. And Howard told him that he thought, well, I believe there's life after Congress, and let the guy go on his way. Well, that guy was not reelected, and Howard's been reelected 14 times during his time here. So true proof that fiscal conservatism can still win. There are a number of other stories that we'll talk about over perhaps a drink afterwards. But the one thing is, everybody from his district knows, and those of us from North Carolina know, that he knows every high school mascot in the state of North Carolina. And every child that I see that comes through Congress is simply amazed that their dean knows where they're from and knows their high school and their high school mascot. It's because he cares. And so we're grateful tonight, and we want to say thank you to our friend, our dean, our leader, John Howard Coble. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield such time as she may consume to the gentlelady from Ohio, Ms. Capter.
I want to thank the Secretary of the Republican Caucus for granting me this time tonight, and to say that I rise as a member from the loyal opposition who has great affection, friendship, and admiration for my neighbor in the Rayburn building. I would say that Congressman Howard Coble represents the values of gentlemanly behavior, affability, cordiality. Some might say, those of us from the North would call it a bit of a courtly manner that I always associated with the South. He's not just a man of character, but he is a character. And his personality and demeanor represent the type of collegiality that is so important to bring this institution together. I have no doubt he has well represented the constituents of his North Carolina district these many years, the 6th District, and who probably share my great affection for this wonderful man. Now, I say that knowing that we disagree issue-wise on almost everything. But I think Howard Coble is the kind of person who represents what Congress should be. Individuals who may disagree on issues, but who become friends through their years of service. That is really remarkable, because many people who go to work every day in this country, they go to work with people who think just like they do. They're in the same business, or they teach a course in something, or they're surrounded by those who agree. But what makes Howard Coble special is he can be friends with people who disagree. Now, those who disagree with him even might come from his own party, and one comes to mind in particular, someone that he has kindly called the Lady of the Harbor. I don't know if former Congresswoman Helen Bentley is listening tonight or not, but she has a few remembrances of Howard as well. And though we might disagree, we became great friends. And it makes the service bearable. It makes it bearable. Howard is also my neighbor over in the Rayburn building, and there isn't a time that we pass in the hall that he always doesn't say, hey, good morning, hey, good afternoon, how you doing? His compassionate nature and his Mr. Cordiality really is an extraordinary quality in an institution where people come with very, very strongly held views. So I want to pay tribute to Howard Coble's service. I didn't know he was the longest-serving Republican in North Carolina history. He has served honorably, and he has helped this institution to hold together. So thank you, Howard Coble, for teaching all of us how to behave and how to be effective in our service. May God bless you in the days and years ahead. You know you always have family here. We appreciate your service, and we thank the people of North Carolina for sending you here these many years. Godspeed.
Yields back, General from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield such time as he may consume to our distinguished colleague from Texas, Mr. Lamar Smith.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
I thank the gentlewoman for yielding. Let me say that I am absolutely privileged and honored to be here tonight to be able to talk about such a good friend, Howard Coble. If I were to describe Howard in 2 words, and this is an ultimate compliment in my book, it would be that he is a gentleman and a scholar. And there aren't too many people who actually succeed in achieving both those kinds of distinctions. And so, Howard, it is nice to be with you tonight. You're here on the front row of the House chamber, and we celebrate your contributions to public service, and we honor you for being the great person you are. I've often said, and I've mentioned this to Howard Coble in person, that if there was such a thing as a congressional class president, it would be Howard Coble. Now, we don't have such a thing as a class president, but if we did, I think Howard would be nominated and voted upon and approved by acclamation. He is that popular. He is that dearly loved and respected by all of us. I have had the privilege of sitting next to him on the Judiciary Committee for many, many years. And during that time, I have watched Howard work, I have watched him speak, and I have watched him think. And he has been chairman of 3 subcommittees on the Judiciary Committee: First Crime, Second Administrative Law, and Third Intellectual Property, and that being the most recent subcommittee that he's chaired. He's also chaired another subcommittee early on the Transportation Committee, which means that he's probably one of those rare members of Congress, perhaps even the only one, who has chaired 4 subcommittees in the House of Representatives. Throughout all that time, and in all my years of being with Howard, he has exhibited some wonderful attributes, and those qualities are graciousness, smarts, and politeness. Again, a rare combination in any individual, but those are the qualities, those are the attributes that we see in Howard on a daily basis. Well, Howard Coble and I share something else in common, and that is that we often are half of a congressional doubles team that have been playing tennis for years and years and years. Howard, I'd like to say that we're the better half, and maybe that's true half the time. I'm not sure, something close to that. But there have been a number of members who have participated in these doubles matches, and 2 primary members who are oftentimes on the other side of the net from Howard and me are Bob Goodlatte and Fred Upton. They have been joined on occasion by Shelley Moore Capito and also by Kevin Yoder. And I have to say, Howard, I do believe that whoever plays with Shelley Moore Capito probably wins more often than not. Or maybe I should say that when Shelley was playing with, say, Bob or Fred, that we had our hands full. It's not to say we were always on the losing side, but and we held our own. And it's just been a real pleasure to enjoy those times together with you. And I will say unequivocally that I don't know of anybody else who is a better volleyer than you. If anyone got a tennis ball past you in the last 10 years, I did not see it. And so we appreciate your tennis prowess as well. Lastly, again, we're here tonight just to honor a great man, a gentleman and a scholar, both for his public service, for being an example to all of us in the House, and also to so many of us being just an exceptionally good friend. Howard, thank you for being with us for these wonderful years that you've been in Congress, and that you've done so much for your constituents and done so much for us, your colleagues and friends in the House as well. It's a privilege to be here tonight.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Sheila Jackson Lee.
Gentlelady from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank the manager of this special order, and it gives me great privilege to be able to stand here today. As I look at Congressman Coble, I think of the men and women who love this institution. I love it, and I've had the privilege of serving on the House Judiciary Committee, which I believe is the holder of the Founding Fathers' dream of democracy for this country. And as I have worked with Congressman Coble, I have seen nothing but his love for the law, for the broad depth of the House Judiciary Committee, and might I say, the power. And Congressman, you've used that power with gentlemanliness, gentility, and forcefulness in representing your constituents and your philosophy. We've had some tough battles on the House Judiciary Committee, but I've always seen and known Howard Coble to be a gentleman. And I am reminded of how many days and moments and minutes and months that we have been here in this place. And Howard, I believe that every time we've seen each other, we've said hello with a smile. I thank you for that. And it represents your love of this country and your love of the system of justice and democracy and the respect for difference of opinion. Let me also say that I have a great Texan as my daughter, and she loves Texas. She's now an elected official. But she went on to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and Duke. She couldn't leave North Carolina. And one of the persons that she knew, the bipartisan manner of your work, and as they studied in those two campuses, they knew Congressman Howard Coble. So let me say to you, on behalf of those of us who have worked with you over the years, Democrats and Republicans, the time that I've had the privilege of serving in this House, what a mighty thank you we want to give you, and to recognize the service you've given to the nation, to your constituents, and certainly the teaching that you've given to all of us. Well done, my good friend. We will miss you, and we wish for you long life, an enjoyable time in continuing to serve in your own way the United States of America. Thank you so very much. We love you, Howard. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now yield 5 minutes to our distinguished colleague from North Carolina, Mr. Holding.
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak for a few minutes about some of the many remarkable qualities that my friend, the leader of the North Carolina delegation, Congressman Howard Coble, has exemplified through his nearly 30 years of service to the 6th District of North Carolina and its people. To earn the continuous confidence of your constituents for 3 decades, Mr. Speaker, is a tremendous honor, and one that Howard Coble has unfailingly performed with remarkable humility, never taking it for granted that he would be reelected. To also earn the respect and devotion of your staff, members of this House on both sides of the aisle, certainly as we've seen tonight, and the many stakeholders who he's worked with on a daily basis throughout his career as a legislator, is a testament to Howard's commitment to public service, and more importantly, Mr. Speaker, a testament to his personal character and charm. Many of the laws Howard Coble has authored have been in politically and technically complex areas: copyright, patent, trademark. These agreements can be very difficult to negotiate, and it's vitally important to the public and the American economy that we get it right, and Howard Coble has gotten it right. He's protected the rights of individual authors and inventors, just as the drafters of the Constitution intended them to be. Howard's skills and his unblemished reputation for fair dealing among all parties have been critical to the congressional efforts over the many years to forge consensus in these difficult areas. And Howard's commitment to public service, as we've heard tonight from the other speakers, began long before 1984 when he was elected to Congress. It's a commitment to public service that spans over 50 years. And throughout his life, he's performed these duties with a sense of grace, compassion, and respect. Respect for people, respect for his colleagues, respect for the process, respect for the institutions of government, as have all been echoed here tonight. I've talked to a number of Congressman Coble's staff to hear reflections that they've had, and a number of them have recalled some poignant moments. One, recalling the valuable lessons that Howard's taught him, one of the longest-serving staff members told me how impressed he was to learn why Howard went back to his district regularly to meet with constituents who were unlikely to support him. So he didn't only meet with his supporters, but the folks who didn't support him. And Howard explained that the congressional seat he was in didn't belong to him, but it was their seat, and that all his constituents needed to know that they have a congressman who cares about them, thinks about them, and represents them in Washington, even if they decide never to vote for him, that he will represent them. Another staff member echoed the sentiment, recalling how refreshing it was to work for a member who is always able to stay true to his ideas, describing Howard as someone who appreciates real people. Another staff member remarked that she was so impressed at how other members responded to him. She recalled that at the beginning of a Judiciary Committee markup right before Howard's father passed away, that Chairman Hyde started off with a moment of silence. And after that moment of silence, the first two members to come up to Howard and express sorrow for his loss were Representative Watt and Representative Delahunt, two colleagues who crossed the aisle to console and share a moment with their friend who was mourning a loss. Witnessing that moment made this young staffer proud to work for Howard. It taught her a lot about the importance of treating people in a humane fashion. And indeed, Howard treats everyone humanely, whether it's a meeting with constituents, a meeting with high-level officials, a meeting with celebrities even, or meeting with staff members after a long day, having them come over to his office where they share a laugh for a few moments, calling staff members after a long markup and telling them that he really appreciated the work that they did today. In an interview, Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, Howard stated, "I've been richly blessed with good friends up here and also back home, and I'll continue to embrace those friends even though I'm leaving." Well, Mr. Speaker, it's us who have been richly blessed by Howard. And we will continue to embrace our good friend Howard because he's a friend and a mentor to us all forever. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to give our colleague from North Carolina a moment to respond if he wishes to make any comments about the comments that we have made about him. I'm not sure I want to just yield such time as he may consume, but my hope is that if he wishes to respond, he will take the opportunity to do so.
Mr. Speaker, as many of my colleagues know, my middle name is brevity. If it can be said in 5 minutes, don't take 25 minutes to say it. You all surely know how to make an old man feel good, and I thank you for this. You've embellished many areas of my life, which I have embraced as well. But I must correct what Patrick McHenry said. I do not know every mascot in North Carolina. I think Virginia's given me credit for that too. But thanks to all of you who took part in this special order. You make me feel very special, and for that I thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank all of my colleagues who have come down tonight. I did not thank them on an individual basis because I wanted to save as much time as possible for people to make the comments that they made. I think the fact that we've had such a bipartisan presentation here tonight supports the comments that have been made tonight. The comments that have been made, notwithstanding what our colleagues said, have been extremely eloquent, and I want to thank everybody for coming down. I want you to know that we did our best to have this event earlier this year, but we could not get on Mr. Coble's schedule because there were so many parties going on his behalf that we had an awful time finding a night to do it. I don't know anybody who has more people paying him tribute than our friend Howard Coble. We are going to miss him tremendously, and his North Carolina values of hard work, common sense, and sacrifice on behalf of those he served. It's been a personal joy for me to work alongside Howard Coble in the Congress for the last 10 years, and it really is hard to imagine how we will go on without him. His friendship and leadership in our state delegation will be dearly missed in the coming years. But his legacy of service and devotion to our home state and all North Carolinians will continue to be a standard for current and future leaders to follow. He will always be our dean. He will always be our leader. And Mr. Speaker, with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlelady yields back. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2013, the Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Goldman, for 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I just wanted to also express my love and appreciation for Howard Coble. There's not a more honorable, noble, humble, able man in all of Congress, and it's been a great opportunity and a great blessing to me in my life to be a friend of Howard Coble and to pray with him, to worship with him, to study with him, to discuss with him, and I will always be grateful to the most eligible bachelor in all of Congress. I don't know who'll fill that role when Howard Coble's gone, but thank you. You will be missed.
On that note, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to depart.